How Lionel Rothschild became wealthy, the untold story behind his success. What if I told you that one man, armed with nothing but a pen, a prayer, and a portfolio, once bought the Suez Canal before breakfast? What if I told you he was born into a world that adored his money but despised his faith? What if the most powerful man in Britain wasn't a king, a general, or a prime minister, but a soft-spoken banker who couldn't even take a seat in parliament because of his religion? This is the story of Lionel Nathan de Rothschild, the man who turned gold into influence, silence into strategy, and scandal into legacy. How did Lionel fund wars when others fled? Why did Parliament slam its doors in his face, again and again? What secrets lay behind the Suez Canal deal that changed the fate of empires? And how did a man accused of spinning financial webs across Europe become one of the most respected philanthropists of his age? It was 22nd November 1808, and London was still nursing bruises from the Napoleonic Wars. The city was a patchwork of soot-stained ambition and aristocratic anxiety. Into this world came Lionel Rothschild, swaddled not in silk but in expectation. His father, Nathan Mayer Rothschild, had arrived from Frankfurt in 1798 with little more than a suitcase, a sharp mind, and a knack for turning war into profit. Nathan was the fourth son of Mayer Amschel Rothschild, the patriarch of the Rothschild banking dynasty. Nathan didn't just bring capital, he brought calculation. He set up shop in Manchester, then London, and began financing British government bonds with such precision that by the time Lionel was born, Nathan had become the financial juggernaut of England. How powerful was he? Let's put it this way. When the Duke of Wellington needed funds to fight Napoleon, it wasn't the Bank of England that stepped up. It was Nathan Rothschild. He created a network of couriers and coded letters that moved money faster than armies. He once said, "The best time to buy is when blood is running in the streets." Ruthless? Perhaps. Effective? Absolutely. Lionel's mother, Hannah Barrett Cohen, came from another prominent Jewish banking family. She was cultured, devout, and deeply aware of the social barriers her son would face. Because while Lionel was born into wealth, he was also born into exclusion. In early 19th century Britain, Jews were barred from voting, holding public office, serving in the military, and attending elite universities like Oxford and Cambridge. They couldn't be MPs, couldn't be judges, and couldn't even swear the standard oaths required for civic duty, because those oaths invoke Christianity. The Rothschilds were tolerated for their money, but not embraced for their faith. So yes, Lionel's cradle was gilded, but the walls around it were made of prejudice. Lionel's education was a blend of elite tutoring and continental polish. He studied in Germany and France, absorbing languages, mathematics, and the art of diplomacy. He was fluent in finance before he was fluent in English. But his real schooling came from his father, Nathan. Nathan was not a gentle teacher. He believed in financial Darwinism. "A man's word is his bond," he told Lionel, "but a bond is better when it earns interest." He drilled into his son the importance of discretion, precision, and risk. One of his favorite lessons? Never risk more than you can afford to lose, but always risk enough to matter. By his 20s, Lionel was already managing parts of the Rothschild empire, which now had branches in Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. He was quiet, methodical, and fiercely intelligent. A contemporary once said, "Lionel Rothschild speaks little, but when he does, the pound listens." In 1836, Lionel married Charlotte von Rothschild, his cousin. Yes, the Rothschilds liked to keep it in the family, financially and genetically. But this was no cold transaction. Charlotte was cultured, philanthropic, and deeply involved in Jewish community affairs. Together, they had 5 children, including Nathaniel Mayer Rothschild, who would later become the first Jewish peer in Britain. Their marriage was a partnership of minds and missions. Charlotte once wrote, "Lionel does not speak often, but when he does, the room listens." She was his confidant, his sounding board, and his fiercest defender in a society that often saw their faith as a flaw. Parliament for the City of London. In 1847, Lionel was elected Member of Parliament for the City of London. It was a historic moment, until it wasn't. To take his seat, Lionel had to swear an oath on the true faith of a Christian. This wasn't just ceremonial, it was a legal requirement, and Lionel, a devout Jew, refused. Cue the drama. He was re-elected in 1849, blocked again, re-elected in 1852, still blocked, re-elected in 1857. Parliament was starting to look like a revolving door with a "No Jews Allowed" sign. The opposition was fierce. Sir Robert Inglis, a staunch Anglican, thundered, "To admit a Jew is to unchristian the house." But Lionel stood firm. "I seek not to change your faith," he said, "only to serve my country." Finally, in 1858, after more than a decade of legal wrangling, political lobbying, and public debate, the oath was modified. Parliament passed the Jewish Disabilities Bill, allowing Jewish MPs to omit the Christian phrase from the oath. Lionel entered the House of Commons, hat in hand, Torah in heart. He became the first practicing Jew to sit in Parliament. His words that day? "I have waited long enough. Let us begin." It was more than a statement, it was a declaration of arrival. A century of exclusion had been cracked open by one man's quiet persistence. By the mid-19th century, Lionel Rothschild wasn't just a banker. He was the financial backbone of Britain's foreign policy. In 1855, as the Crimean War raged and coffers ran dry, the British government turned to Lionel. Other financiers hesitated. War was messy, unpredictable, and politically volatile. But Lionel? He saw opportunity in chaos. He extended millions of pounds in loans to the government, helping fund military operations against Russia. His terms were firm but fair. He didn't just lend money, he lent confidence. The war may have been fought with cannons, but it was financed with Rothschild bonds. Then came 1875 and the Suez Canal. The canal, built by the French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps, was the shimmering artery between Europe and India. Control of it meant control of trade, empire, and influence. When the Khedive of Egypt, drowning in debt, offered his shares for sale, Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli needed £4 million. Fast. Enter Lionel. Without consulting Parliament, a move that raised more than a few powdered eyebrows, Disraeli turned to Rothschild. Lionel delivered the funds within 48 hours, no questions asked. The deal secured Britain's grip on the canal and, by extension, its imperial lifeline. Disraeli, ever the showman, quipped, "Rothschild is the man who buys empires before breakfast." Their relationship was layered. Disraeli, a Christian of Jewish descent, understood the sting of exclusion. Lionel, a Jew fighting for Christian respect, understood the cost of acceptance. They spoke in different tongues but shared the same ambition. Lionel once said, "Disraeli speaks in riddles, but his checks are clear." But with great power comes great suspicion. The Rothschilds were accused of manipulating markets, of influencing monarchs, and of being too powerful for their own good. Lionel, in particular, was targeted by anti-Semitic cartoons that depicted him as a spider spinning webs across Europe, a grotesque metaphor for financial control. In 1862, a controversy erupted. Rumors swirled that the Rothschilds had profited from insider knowledge about the American Civil War. Specifically, the outcome of battles and the impact on cotton prices. Lionel denied it with characteristic calm. "We trade in bonds, not blood." But the whispers lingered. In drawing rooms and newspapers, the Rothschild name became synonymous with shadowy influence. Then came 1873, the global financial panic. Markets crashed, banks folded, even Rothschild investments took a hit. Lionel had to reassure not just clients but governments and his own family. He gathered his partners and said, "Fortunes bend, but they do not break when built on trust." It was a masterclass in crisis management. The Rothschilds weathered the storm, emerging bruised but intact. Despite his towering influence, Lionel was never knighted. His Jewish faith made that politically delicate. But he was showered with respect. He co-founded the British Relief Association, which provided aid during the Irish famine. He funded hospitals, schools, and synagogues. He was a patron of science, art, and civil rights. His philanthropy was quiet, deliberate, and deeply impactful. He didn't seek applause, he sought results. On June 3, 1879, Lionel Rothschild died at age 70. The Times wrote, "He was a man of quiet power, whose influence was felt in every corner of the empire." He was buried in Willesden Jewish Cemetery, London, beneath a modest stone. No marble mausoleum, no golden epitaph, just a name that had moved nations. Lionel Rothschild was not just a banker. He was a bridge between faith and politics, between finance and philanthropy, between exclusion and inclusion. He faced prejudice with patience, power with principle, and history with humility. His legacy? A parliament that opened its doors. A canal that changed the world. a family that still shapes global finance, and a life that proved you don't need a crown to rule, you just need conviction. Next up, Alfred Nobel. Before you go, make sure to follow us, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the lives of the world's most intriguing legends. Trust us, you won't want to miss what's coming next.